kind of like the goal was to plant in Eden, because all we get is what's going on in Eden. We don't know what's going on in the rest of the world.
Mhm.
As far as we can tell, the rest of the world is dirt at this point. So we only get Eden. And the goal is to like identify the rest of the world, to expand
Mhm.
Eden out, right? As they had children and multiplied, it would just bring Eden out to the world. You get the same pattern, it looks like, in Canaan when he brings Israel in to Canaan, where he's coaching them at this point. Like, look, your job is to bring justice and righteousness out into the world. That this is how you're going to be a blessing to all the families of the earth, from Genesis 12. And so the goal is, the promised land is the entire ancient Near East, including Egypt, right?
Mhm.
But he plants them in this one little crappy section of the promised land, Israel. If you don't know how bad it is there, it's the only part of the Fertile Crescent that's not so fertile. He plants them in that land in order for them to Israelify, as one of my friends used to say, is the goal was the Israelification of the world, which essentially
Mhm.
means bringing this justice and righteousness out to people who desperately needed it. And you see that when Israel encounters Rahab, right? Someone who like
Yes.
thirsts for the justice that Israel is going to bring to her own people on both
Mhm.
sides, both kind of judgment in that sense, but also like that there's like that she will have a place in that society. And as the author of Joshua notes, and her people are with us to this day, right? In
Mhm.
Joshua 4.
Mhm.
So I think that idea, and then again, I can't miss the opportunity to point out, Jesus also says, stay here in Jerusalem, right, until power comes from on high, and I send you out to the ends of the earth. So that kind of
Mhm.
planting and expanding view seems to be what's in mind, which I think then can help us understand some of the harshness, both in the New Testament, Ananias and Sapphira getting struck dead for doing,
Mhm.
a minor lie while they were doing something good. And the same thing with the striking dead of the priest, Nadab and Abihu, the blasphemer. And is if your goal is you're using these people to spread justice and righteousness, and they're not doing the very basics after they witnessed all these signs and wonders that were meant for them to trust God wholly so that they could bring his trustworthy justice out into the world to protect and bring in and beautify the world in some way, then you are toxic to the mission. I think
Mhm.
the example I give in the book is you're like an astronaut on a space station who's gone rogue, who's pulling apart the space station, bolt by bolt. At some
Mhm.
point, if you can't stop them, you're just going to have to send them out the airlock, right?
Mhm.
So there's a little bit of that mentality going on here in the mission mindset. And so that I take that Genesis 12, like a lot of biblical theologians do, that being a blessing to all the families of the earth is as serious a theological statement in scripture as you will ever find. I think it's also the reason why God tries to kill Moses.
Mhm. Mhm.
Pharaoh sought to kill him. And you're like, wait, he sought to kill Moses because his son wasn't circumcised? What's the big deal? Well, if your son isn't circumcised, it might indicate that you're not on board with the mission to go to all the families of the earth.
Mhm.
That's my best guess in the passage, which is a very strange passage, I'll admit.
Yeah. Well, that immediately reminds me that the Israelites, they were learning about God's character both through the Exodus and through the law in the same way that the rest of the world was.
Yeah.
And we tend to forget that their ideas of God were still very much being formed. And
Mm.
so they saw God's power, they saw his deliverance in the Exodus, but the law was meant to, as again you state so eloquently, to shape their moral imagination